I mean, at least in theory, this review could turn out quite short, because what actually takes up a lot of time in my reviews is complaining about certain aspects that aren't quite as good as I would like them to be. But in the case of the Logitech G Pro, I simply don't really have anything. Okay, I mean, I could tell you that with a price of around $160 or 140 euros, it's quite expensive. But then again, on the other hand, I think it's worth every single cent. Now also, one wish that I have is maybe 1 or 2 buttons more, like I have with my Razer Lancet, which just raises up the convenience a little bit. But in the 3 weeks that I had the Logitech G Pro, I did not touch any other mouse at all, just because even though it does not have these buttons, it makes up more than it should with everything else, which for example starts with the weight. It weighs about, I don't know actually, because I don't care, but at least from a feel standpoint, like a third or fourth of the Razer Lancet, which at first I thought would have been a negative because it felt a little bit too lightweight and cheap. I wouldn't have maybe quite the precision, but none of them turned out to be true. It is absolutely great. And for example, here on the bottom, we can store the dongle. We get the reset button on and off with the feet and everything else, along with a design that is absolutely, even though it looks very minimalistic, ergonomically pretty much perfect, because from the side they both actually look quite similar. But especially from the top, you see quite a difference. And maybe you've seen the videos where Logitech said that they gave it a lot of different gamers and they wanted to find the perfect shape, and this is what they came up with. And I think they might be true, because I'm a lefty and I usually use as many buttons as I can, and I have easy access with my ring finger, as easy as pretty much on no other mouse to the other ones. But here's the next good thing. We have 2 buttons on the left and 2 on the right, because this is an ambidextrous mouse. But for all those people who, for example, don't want this button, you just take this one with the magnets it holds, and this button is gone. And you can do this with every button. You can decide which you want to use and which you don't want to use, which is absolutely perfect. And yes, I would wish for the 1 button more here on the top, which for some gamers could be helpful, because I see this on many gaming mouses, to change the DPI, which is just a thing that you don't get here. But what you get here is incredible weight distribution, because what I like so much about this mouse is that it is so lightweight that you pretty much don't even notice it using it, and it feels like an extension of your arm, because in terms of ergonomics it sits just right. I can access all the buttons very easily. The mouse wheel makes no annoying sound like my Razer does. It really is annoying, especially if you work in a quiet room all the time, but the buttons, great sound. The switches should hold up for a very long time. And what you can actually do, what I didn't try though, at least I read it, you could change the resistance. But since it felt pretty much perfect for me, I didn't think of doing it. The one thing that I've noticed is that the mouse wheel has a little bit more resistance, which is maybe actually even good, because you won't make any misclicks. But buttons are top. Click is great. You can modify them and so on. Maybe you can't modify the weight, which is important for some people, but I don't care about it. Before we are getting into the performance, let's actually talk about the software though, where I have to tell you a few things. For example, the first thing that I didn't even know first, there is an integrated memory, which I knew, where, for example, you can store up 5 profiles, where you can set up all the buttons and the performance. Like obviously the buttons, you change the button and you can change what the button does in so many different ways. For example, a new one, and I mean, you can change pretty much everything. You can make the button do whatever you want to. Macros and all that is absolutely there, along with the speed up to 16,000 DPI, which I think, in my opinion, is overkill. But what is actually way more convenient for me is this next option, which is the automatic game detect, which, for example, you can use for different games to load different profiles. I actually don't use it for games, but for apps. For example, if I switch to the Explorer, I have a different layout than if I switch to the normal setup. Obviously, I can set all the buttons and do whatever I want, and this is great because, for example, in Adobe Premiere, I just like to have the buttons do something else what I simply don't need in the browser or in the Windows Explorer, and this is so much convenience. And switching between those profiles by automatic profile changing here, automatic game detect, seems more seamless than it did on the other mice that I've tried before. Now, obviously, if we go... This is the wrong window. Here you can change, once again, the DPI, have also different ones, and change the lighting. You have a solid color, cycle, and the breathing effect. You can change that for the logo, turn it on and off. You also have usually here 3 DPI points that I simply just don't have lit up. You can change the color and that is all good. So you're set up with a really good software. It works actually very reliable, never had any issues with that. But one thing that is in my opinion the highlight that I want to get into now is battery life. Because as you can see, I'm right now at 38% and it says still 19 hours. And this is the one thing baffling me, where I would really like to tell you the exact battery life of how long I can use it. But here's the issue. I have it for 3 weeks now, and I'm still on my first charge that I did on the second day. So I don't get how, because it's supposed to deliver 50 hours of use. For example, the Razer says 2 days or about 48 hours, and what I get is with the lighting, which looks a little bit nicer though I have to say, because it's a little bit more round than just the logo, but gamers won't really care that much about it. I get about 2 or 3 days. Without the lighting, I get about maybe 4 or 5 days. Here, I'm on 3 weeks already. I mean, okay, I didn't use it every single day, but that's usually the use that I have in my normal 3 weeks, even though I was gone for 2 or 3 days. The battery life, at least for now, seems to hold up for like a month or so, which is something that I actually don't really get. But what you actually get also is an adapter, USB type A to micro USB. You also get all 4 of these caps to cover all the buttons, and a cable in case you want to use it wired that is of a good quality, because this soft rubberized cable is very flexible. And then just plug it in and it is a wired mouse. But like I said, it's great that it feels so lightweight and you pretty much don't notice it, which brings me to the performance. It's absolutely indistinguishable for me from any other gaming mouse. I mean, the sensor does an absolutely great job. It is so fast, and from what I've heard, it seems that Logitech's wireless sensors are already, the whole wireless technique is so good that you don't really notice it, and it really just comes down to which one feels better for you in terms of in-hand feel, or maybe the buttons and so on. But if I use this, I definitely feel it being way better than the Razer Lens, even with wired. Or for example, the HyperX Pulsefire Search that I reviewed, which is wired, which has a really top-notch sensor. This one is at least as good, if not even better, because I obviously don't use the 16K DPIs, but it is, I can't see any delay. It is super precise, and especially, for example, on the 144 Hz monitor that I'm using right now, everything feels super smooth, super accurate, instantaneous. There is no acceleration going on, along with the buttons that works great with the keys. So let me actually sum this up. Ergonomics, in my opinion, absolutely great, and I think everyone should be well done because it's ambidextrous. You can hide the buttons and so on. This should fit everyone. One button more and it would be near perfect. But what it is, and I've actually did this already in the first take, which has no audio, I'm gonna say this. I wanted to say initially, this is pretty much damn near flawless and perfect, but I actually took that back, because flawless it is, because everything they did has no flaws. The buttons are amazing, the ergonomics are great, the mouse read is great, the sensor is absolutely amazing, the wireless technique is great, the battery life is amazing, also the software works really well, so there is no flaw. Why it's not maybe perfect is the button, but that's obviously one thing that you have to decide on, and you have to really use it for your own to maybe decide, get a first in-hand feel to just know if this is right for you. I have to say, this is so right for you, because even though my Razer Lens offers me those few buttons, which is a little bit more convenient in some apps, I would take this one and throw it against the wall if I could have this, because it just feels so much better and it is so much more convenient to use. And when I use this for the last 3 weeks, I usually switch between mice for different kind of scenarios whenever I do my videos and so on. But this is the one that I always stick with, because I mean, the most convenient thing is maybe not having to think about battery life, because on this one every few days I have to think about it, and as you can see, it's pretty much dead already. This one holds and holds and holds, like, you know, the Duracell bunny. And this is where I'm just gonna say it. Flawless. For most people actually perfect, because I'm not sure what you could improve on besides the button, which is a wish. But what could you improve? Ergonomics, not really. Sensor, I don't know. Buttons, not really. You can change even the resistance and so on. You can do things what you can't do on other ones. And then, for example, compared to the Logitech G900 that I had, also great sensor and everything else, but that one for me felt noticeably too big and too heavy to really use it comfortably. And that's why I would even say, even though this one costs like $50 more than the Logitech G900, it's worth every single penny. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. Until next time, bye.